You all know each other, I take it. Everybody knows everybody. You know me? You all know me? Many times at the temple. Okay. This is Sri Radhika, in case you don't know who she is. She likes to hear. And I think I picked a very good topic for this evening. Does anybody here, any of our attendees, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam in your home? Who has the Srimad Bhagavatam in their home? Wow. Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. Super fantastic. Well, I'm going to read something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, verse 24. 2:24. So I'll do a little background to encourage you to also take a look at Srimad Bhagavatam on your own. As you likely know, Srimad Bhagavatam is largely spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. Actually, it's spoken by Sutta about what he heard from Shukadeva Goswami. Sutta Goswami was a disciple and a son of his father, Romaharshan. Romaharshan Sutta was one of the persons who Srila Vyasadeva entrusted portions of the Vedas when he divided the Vedas. He divided the Vedas into 4, right? Vyasadeva divided the Vedas into 4. Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Tara Veda, 4 Vedas. And then he compiled the Smriti section, the Puranas, and he entrusted the Puranas to Sutta's father. His name was Romaharshan Sutta. So Sutta learned everything from his father. And Sutta also was in the audience when Shukadeva Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. When Shukadeva Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam, the principal person who he was speaking to was the king. And the king was Maharaja Pariksit. And Maharaja Pariksit was the grandson of the Pandavas. When it was time for the Pandavas to depart this world, they entrusted the kingdom to their grandson, Maharaja Pariksit. And there's several chapters describing the character and quality, etc., of Maharaja Pariksit. Great soul. And by divine arrangement, by super soul's arrangement, he made a boo-boo. What did he do? He offended a Brahmana. That's a no-no. You don't offend Brahmanas. But he not only offended a Brahmana, he became angry, and he put a dead snake around the neck of the Brahmana because he didn't receive him properly, because he was in meditation. He was just absorbed in meditation. So he became angry. That's not Maharaja Pariksit. He doesn't offend Brahmanas, he doesn't become angry. But he did both. And when the son of that sage heard what happened, he saw the dead snake on his father's neck. And he found out how it happened. Maharaja Pariksit did this. He cursed him. He'd die. He knew some mantras. He did some procedures. And he cursed him that within 7 days he would die from the bite of a mystical snake bird. There's no such thing. There's birds. And there's snakes, but there's no snake bird. But there's a mystical snake bird, very venomous. As soon as the snake bird bit Maharaja Pariksit, his body burst into flames instantly. Pile of ashes. So knowing that he was cursed like that, Maharaj Pariksit expected he was going to get a reaction. When he heard what the reaction was, the sage had a message delivered to the king. This is what's going to happen in 7 days. You better prepare yourself. So he's preparing himself by giving up all of his royal attire and turned the kingdom over to his son. Do any of you know the name of the son of Maharaj Pariksit, the next king in line following Maharaj Pariksit? He's an important person. Janamejaya. Very good. Right? Is that right? Janamejaya. Janamejaya was the next king. Janamejaya became the king. Maharaj Pariksit went to the bank of the Ganges. No more crown, no more royal attire, no more nothing. Preparing himself to die in this mystical way in 7 days. He invited all the sages of his kingdom to come and to advise him how should he use the remaining 7 days. They had this idea that, you know how assemblies are, that there's so many different ideas. In the midst of that assembly came a 16-year-old boy named Shukadev Goswami, who is described, he was clothed by the 4 directions. In other words, he was absolutely detached. Absolutely detached. And when he came, they all recognized his exalted demeanor, and all the sages rose to receive him. They offered him a special seat so he could speak. And then Maharaj Pariksit asked Shukadev Goswami, how should I prepare for death? It was 2 essential questions. What is that subject matter that one should always hear, chant, and remember? That's one question. The second question was, what is the duty of a man who's about to die? Now, he knew he was going to die in 7 days, and we don't know if we're going to die in 7 minutes. But we know for sure something's going to happen at some point in time, and we're all going to be gone, some other place besides this place. So what are you supposed to do to prepare for that inevitable? Good question. And the answers to those 2 good questions are found in the first 3 chapters of Canto 2 Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm going to read one of those verses, kind of like a conclusion of those 3 chapters. A quick summary of chapter 1. Shukadev Goswami describes the universal form in such a way that one can see things of this world and see the things of this world in terms of a personal feature of God. So he described the universal form in that way, because there are different descriptions of the universal form. And he indicated that devotional service should be performed. That's the thread throughout the 3 chapters. Following chapter 1 is chapter 2. He then says that as that becomes the personal conception of the Supreme, even in terms of nature, is established, next one should meditate upon, fix one's mind upon, concentrate upon the Lord of the heart. So the procedure for that, and so many other nice teachings along with that. And render service to the Supreme Lord. The thread. Then comes chapter 3, which I'm going to be reading from, just one verse. And the subject matter that one should always hear, chant, and remember is explained as the subject matter in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the personal conception is now underscored. There's the seeing things that are material, seeing God within the things that are material, seeing the Lord in the heart, so the all-pervasive personal feature, the Lord in the heart feature, and his personal identity feature, chapter 3. So it's a nice, if you want a nice little summary of the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, those 3 chapters are a good place. The first 3 chapters of Canto 1 is also super good. When Prabhupada, you may know this, before Prabhupada came to America, he wanted to carry Srimad Bhagavatam with him. So he translated the first canto. He translated the first canto in 3 volumes. Each of those 3 volumes was nearly 400 pages long. A lot of work. Try writing a book sometime. It's a lot of work. But he was very absorbed, and he brought Srimad Bhagavatam with him. He said, everything that you need to know to go back to Godhead is in this first canto. So if you want to go back to Godhead, you know what to do. Just read the first canto. I know a teacher that has taught that first canto Bhagavatam about 50 times to his students. Very important, first canto Bhagavatam. Now we're at second canto Bhagavatam, chapter 3, verse number 24. And Prabhupada uses a phrase, you'll pick up on it, I'm sure, change of heart. Because it's not just a matter of something that you do externally, it's something that goes on internally, or even more than the mind at the heart level. What's the distinction between the mind and the heart? The mind, a modern way of thinking what the mind is like a binary processor, like a computer is a binary processor. Computers just do what minds do. It's modeled after what the mind does. And computers are, I'm not a computer technology guy, but I do understand in principle, it's based upon this 1 and 0, then various combinations of 1 and 0. You go this way, you don't go that way, and you put them all together and you get a computer. It's a fancy binary processor. Just like a light switch. A light switch is on or it's off. On or it's off. There's other kinds of light switches, but on and off is a binary light switch or binary switch. So anyway, the mind is where you accept and reject. Sankalpa, vikalpa. Accept and reject. Then it vacillates between accepting and rejecting. And so conceptions are based upon combinations of accepting and rejecting. So we carry, according to Bhagavad Gita, we carry conceptions of life in the mind. And conceptions of life change as life evolves, doesn't it? Conceptions change. It happens. I mean, you still got your nice Nepali hat, and probably if you were still living in Nepal, you would be wearing the Nepali hat, so some things don't change. But some things change. And so forth and so on. So the heart is not the same as the mind. There's a connection, of course, but the heart is the place where the deepest convictions of life rest. And the deepest of the deep convictions of life are the soul's natural inclination to be in a relationship with the Supreme Soul. In simple language, the part serves the whole. The part serves the whole. One of Prabhupada's many examples is the finger. The finger is connected to the body, disconnected from the body, it's yuck. Look, see a finger lying on the sidewalk. But the finger, when connected to the body, it's useful. the usefulness of the finger connected to the body as it does what is indicated for the finger to do. Scratch your head. Okay. Go to the kitchen and cook a meal. Okay. Or whatever. The part serves the whole. That's the natural function of the part. So we're part of the Supreme, and we're meant for serving the whole. And that's at the heart level. When that's accepted at the heart level, supposing it's not accepted at the heart level, then it goes to the mind, and you start accepting and rejecting things, and which change the course of time. And that's material life. The binary processor does its thing, separate from the relationship with Krishna. The healthy is in relation to service to Krishna, service to the whole, this complete whole, the source of everything. So change of heart is where that connection is happening at the heart level. And when it happens at the heart level, things outside can change and it's okay. You can be in Nepal, you can be in Chicago, and some things inside just don't change. Your attire may change, and this and that, and the other thing may change. But some things don't change if it's at the heart level. So the appeal that Shukadeva Goswami is providing to the king is make a change at the heart level. And the best means of making a change at the heart level is sound. And of all sacred sounds, the holy name is the most dramatic, packed up, powerful method. I'm going to go back a little bit. Text 23, the verse just before 24. The person who has not at any time received the dust from the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has never experienced the aroma of tulsi leaves from the lotus feet of the Lord is also a dead body, although breathing. So don't miss out on those external things that are heart transforming. Now here's text 24. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change. When ecstasy takes place, tears fill the eyes and hairs stand on end. Ashma Saram, Prabhupada is translated as steel-framed. I don't know if there was such a thing as steel during Vedic times, but certainly there were metals. Ashma Saram. So I'm going to read the purport. We should note with profit that in the first 3 chapters of the second canto, a gradual process of development of devotional service is being presented. So I gave you already a quick one. Here's a little more detailed. In first chapter of the first step of devotional service for God consciousness, by the process of hearing and chanting has been stressed, and a gross conception of the personality of Godhead in his universal form for the beginners is recommended. By such a gross conception of God, through the material manifestations of his energy, one is enabled, 1, to spiritualize the mind and senses, and 2, to concentrate the mind upon Lord Vishnu, the Supreme, who is present as the Supersoul, in every heart and everywhere, in every atom of the material universe. The system of Pancha Upasana, recommending 5 mental attitudes for the common man, is also enacted for this purpose, namely, gradual development, worship of the superior that may be in the form of fire, electricity, sun, mass of living beings, Lord Shiva, and at last, the impersonal Supersoul, the partial representation of Lord Vishnu. They are nicely described in the second chapter, but in the third chapter, further development is prescribed after one has actually reached the stage of Vishnu worship. or pure devotional service. And the mature stage of Vishnu worship is suggested herein in relation to the change of heart. Emphasis, change of heart. Paragraph. The whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So, with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment by a false sense of lording it over the world, with an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. That's the change of heart. It's an attitude. It's a orientation. It's a heart's orientation towards not just doing things or, even serving worldly objects or personalities, but serving the Supreme while you're doing all those other duties of life. Vidhi Bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, namely eyes, ears, nose, hands, and legs, as already explained herein before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest the change of heart. If there is no such change, the heart must be considered steel-framed, for it is not melted even when there is chanting of the holy names of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional service, and if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs before one reaches the perfectional stage. Of prema, love of God. So it goes on, and I'm not going to go on. It goes into bhava bhakti and prema bhakti and the offenses against the holy name, and then circles back around to the change of heart message. I'm just going to read the last paragraph. The whole process can be summarized as follows. The advanced devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord in a perfectly offenseless manner and is friendly to everyone can actually relish the transcendental taste of glorifying the Lord, and the result of such realization is reflected in the cessation of all material desires, etc., as mentioned above. The neophytes, due to their being in the lower stage of devotional service, are invariably envious, so much so that they invent their own ways and means of devotional regulations without following the acharyas. As such, even if they make a show of constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, they cannot relish the transcendental taste of the holy name. Therefore, the show of tears in the eyes, trembling perspiration, or unconsciousness, etc., is condemned. They can, however, get in touch with a pure devotee of the Lord and rectify their bad habits. Otherwise, they shall continue to be stone-hearted and unfit for any treatment. A complete progressive march on the return path home back to Godhead will depend on the instructions of the revealed scriptures directed by a realized devotee. Prabhupada was he was thinking very high. He wanted the world, which was his audience, not only do you get some relief from the pangs of material existence, because that's only negation. He wanted the positive awakening of a deeper sense of happiness, and keep going and keep going and keep going. The sense of inner joy, the sense of ecstasy, the sense of love of Godhead. He wanted that. Because that's the human life's mission. We hear so many descriptions of the samsara, the cycle of birth and death, and how many lifetimes, how many different species of life, and lives within those species to get to the human form, and here we are. There's lots of humans. There's lots of living entities that are not yet human, and it's a long journey to come to the human form of life. And once in the human form of life, there are not so many that are interested in spiritual elevation. They have different ideas. Some have spiritual elevation ideas, and there's different ideas. And those different ideas, if they're not connected to the original source of everything, they're not actually going to deliver the spiritual well-being. They'll get something a little bit closer, perhaps not also. Something a little bit closer, which is good. But then for those who really are fortunate and want the full purpose of human life, this Bhagavatam is there. And carrying the Bhagavatam is a merciful mission. There are not too many persons interested in such a mission. We all know. Interested in comfortable life, etc., etc. Family life where there's no problem, but there's always problems. And, wishing for something that's, always going to be better, and it doesn't always get better. It's up and down. Things go up and down. So wanting a permanent solution is rare, and actually connecting with that which is the means for that permanent solution is more rare. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschad yatati siddhaye. You know the verse? Manushanam sahasra. Amongst many thousands and thousands of persons of mankind. Manushanam sahasreshu kaschad yatati siddhaye. Some persons, you may find some persons that want perfection. Comfort is not perfection. Shanti is, it's not found in this world. Perfection. And of those the next, yatatamapi siddhanam, of those who have achieved perfection, millions of such persons, many who have achieved such perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. It's the most rare thing, is to connect with Krishna through devotional service, because that's how you can know Krishna. Say it negatively. You can't know Krishna except through devotional service. Say it positively. The only way to know Krishna is through devotional service. Not just by being scholarly and reading lots of books and being a nice person. And, being kind to others. That's good. Definitely good. But it's not sufficient for knowing Krishna. Sufficient for knowing Krishna is devotional service. And devotional service is the heart. Like, who we really are. Eternally. Not just, for a little while. For some part of the day, that's who I am. The other part of the day, I'm something else. Not like that. It's who we really are. Who we really are. So, The Bhagavatam is taking us on a journey to get there, to devotional service that has its preliminary, just as we read, the vidhis, the regulations, the do's and the do-nots, the prescribed activities of bhakti. We should know what they are and we should do them. And that's preliminary. It's something like a child learning the alphabet. One of the rituals for little children is to start writing the alphabet. I've done that, I don't know, several hundred times. Take the little child's hand and, okay, here we go. A, B, C. I don't know the Sanskrit alphabet. Someone learned the Hindi alphabet or something. But it's, there's rudiments, and the vidhis of bhakti are rudimentary. They're definitely, if you want to read and write, you have to know the alphabet. If you want to have a spiritual life, there have to be some regulations. Have to be some regulations. It's not the essence, but there has to be some regulations. And from those regulations, then there's a purpose behind the regulations. And that's the elevation of consciousness. Detaching oneself from sense gratification, attaching oneself to a life of devotion. I'll just share something with you. I just got a letter today from a devotee in India. Young man. And he was following Vaidhi Bhakti very nicely until stress came. And when stress came, his attention went from Sadhana Bhakti to the source of that stress. And if the source of that stress started to be at the center of his attention, guess what? The stress didn't get smaller. It got bigger and bigger. And as he got more stressed, he lost his focus in spiritual practice. When he lost his focus in spiritual practice, he wrote this in this letter, that I started, my previously more quiet material desires started to rise. And I started just contemplating sense gratification. That was what he wrote in the letter. And I started getting scared. This is a scary situation. So he has a friend in Vrindavan. Not just a friend, a mentor. So he went to Vrindavan. It took him about a week of being in Vrindavan with the deities, the spiritual program at the temple, and it was like a detox. He's those material sense gratification desires started to subside, and his attraction for a spiritual life of regulation started to rise. And now he's feeling, his good old self again. But it's through association and good association and spiritual practice that is protecting him from what is going to otherwise consume him. So, pious people, I'll assume those assembled here wouldn't be here unless you're pious people. So you're pious people. So you have some standards that you live by and codes of life that are meaningful to you, and that protects you from the grosser forms of materialistic life. And then from that position, keep going. Go to the realm of devotional service, strengthening the focus upon the object of devotion, primarily by hearing spiritual sound vibration, and then by vibrating those spiritual sounds that you've heard, the mantra, Maha Mantra, but also the messages of the Bhagavatam. Get together and, just as we're doing right now, read something, discuss that something amongst yourselves. How do we apply this teaching of devotional service? Prabhupada spent hundreds and hundreds, and who knows how many hundreds of hours preparing literatures for such discussions amongst Kathayantas Shamam Nityam Turshanti Cha Ramanti Cha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. The nature of persons who are spiritually inclined. Tushyanti. Tushti means you're satisfied. Ramanti means you're happy. Tushyanti cha, ramanti cha. And what makes such spiritually inclined persons happy? Kata. Katayantas chamam. Nityam. That's what spiritually minded persons do when they come together. The topics of Krishna, Harikatha, Krishna Katha. Bhagavatam is a wonderful Krishna Katha source. I don't know if you do this already, but it's very common here and there, different places. They have a weekly Bhagavatam reading. They just get together. Somebody hosts and they cook, and they were different persons bring, and they bring prasadam, foods offered to Krishna, and they have the prasadam at the end. But just get together and read Srimad Bhagavatam and discuss the topics of Bhagavatam. And this way, they go through the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. That's a wonderful journey, which our founder Acharya very painstakingly provided for us. And when you start reading Prabhupada's books, you'll go, wow, this is realized knowledge. Here's a little Prabhupada story. As busy as he was running a worldwide organization and doing everything that he did, writing his books and opening centers and helping people with their problems and, guiding and training and everything, he would sometimes just have his secretary read his books. And he could sit for hours and just hear with his eyes open, but, not just attentively listening. And from time to time he would say, I've not written these books. Krishna has written these books. And Prabhupada was on a transcendental platform. He had worldly gifts. Someone just sent me something today that I'll end with this. He knew how to talk with monkeys. You want to hear? Some of you like kirtan, I bet. Some of you like kirtan? Yes? Some of you like kirtan. And one of the persons during Prabhupada's time who was most qualified in kirtan was a female disciple named Yamuna. Like when we greet the deities in the temple in the morning, the conch blows, the deity curtain opens, and we hear a recording. It's Jamuna's voice. Jamuna's voice. Here's a little Jamuna story, then the Prabhupada story. Jamuna had a fantastic singing voice. She was one of three devotee couples. There were 6 young Americans, newly married, sent to London to start the Hare Krishna movement in London. And in the course of time, they got very creative and they met the Beatles. How did they meet the Beatles? Real easy. They brought prasadam every day to the recording studio, Apple Records. They brought prasadam. And they became very fond of prasadam. And in the course of time, a relationship developed. In the course of time, as the relationship developed, when they would have time in the recording studio, sometimes they would sing with George Harrison, particularly. And George Harrison really liked Jamuna's singing voice. He said, if you like, I can make you famous. I know how to do it. He was serious. He said, let me think about it. Didn't take long. 2 or 3 days later, she came back and said, I don't want that lifestyle. I just want to sing for Krishna. Fantastic. Professional singing voice. She was good at cooking, too. She wrote a cookbook. Fantastic cookbook. So she said, I just wanted to sing for Krishna. He said, all right, then let's do a recording of your singing for Krishna. And it was during that time, it was 45 RPM. That was the system, little plastic records. On one side was Hare Krishna melody, and the other side was what we hear in the morning, the Govinda prayers that we hear every morning. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. George did the orchestration. He played bass guitar. He figured the whole thing out. He did the recording. And the Hare Krishna side became a selling record in Europe for 3 months of the summer. There was a system like that during that period of time. So she was very good at singing. And she had lots of opportunity for association with Srila Prabhupada. So I'm going to read to you something that Jamuna experiencing Srila Prabhupada talking with monkeys in monkey talk. I mean, he not only knew Krishna, but he knew monkey talk. Here we go. I'm sure I can find it. I sent it to a number of people. Oh, Hayagriva. I have to tell you something, Jamuna said. The author is Hayagriva. He was an English professor at Ohio State University. So he's a good writer too. I've told only Guru Das. Guru Das was her husband. I still don't know whether to believe my eyes. What's that? Well, do you remember that monkey, Haladar? Haladar. A number of monkey faces flash through my mind. All the monkeys look pretty much the same to me, as I assume people must look to them. Having lived on the Radha Damodar roof for so long, Yamuna had become familiar with the clan of some 20 resident monkeys. In fact, so Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. That's where we are. In fact, she and Guru Das have had many laughs, naming monkeys after the old San Francisco temple gang. I don't exactly remember Haladar, I admit. She's the one with the kind of lackadaisical, slow, and shuffling personality, Jamuna said. She comes for prasadam like clockwork. Paragraph. That's nothing distinctive. Living entities are like that in the Holy Dham, very regulated. If you throw a chapati in midair at noon, the same bird will come down at noon every day and catch it. Every day. White cows enter the front gates of Radha Damodar, circumambulate the deities, and then walk back out, performing a parikrama you can set your watch by. One monkey comes every morning to the courtyard, sits in the mango tree with his hands folded, listens to Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and then leaves when it's over. One elephant is said to fast every Ekadasi. Such activities are commonplace in Vrindavan. I'll tell a little Vrindavan story about that myself. Anyway, I don't remember her, I say at length. Haladar, this is Jamuna now, Haladar has been accustomed to taking prasada in my room every Tuesday and Thursday. Regulated. The same room Prabhupada is in now. So she came around this morning as usual and started swinging on the bars of the window and jabbering monkey talk. I was standing outside the door just about to take Srila Prabhupada some hot milk. He couldn't see me, but I could see him sitting inside, leaning on a cushion, very relaxed, with one knee up and one knee out. I get the picture, I say. So, well, hi, Griva, you'll think I'm crazy. Come on. You can't stop now. Well, this is the truth, so help me. Suddenly, Srila Prabhupada started talking to Haladar in pure, unadulterated monkey talk. No. Yes, it was a language. And Prabhupada spoke in the same tone, same meter, everything. So when Haladar heard this, she grabbed both window bars, stuck her ears out, and stared at him in amazement. Then, I swear it, Srila Prabhupada and Haladar had a discussion. A discussion? A discussion, she repeats. Prabhupada was so relaxed and conversing in monkey talk, and the conversation went back and forth for some time. I just stood there afraid to move, afraid to interrupt. I thought of Lord Chaitanya talking to animals in the forest. I knew I was witnessing something unique. I even felt privileged. And then the most amazing thing happened. Oh? After talking for some time, Haladar left. She's never, ever left before without taking prasadam. It's completely against her monkey nature. Srila Prabhupada, I said, I don't believe what I just saw. What went on? And Prabhupada replied, I told her to go away and not bother me anymore. Now, I couldn't speak animal language, but I had an experience personally. Every year, for a number of years, in Vrindavan, I was a teacher at the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. I don't know if you've heard about that. For 1 month, during the Kartik month, beginning first day of Kartik to the end day of Kartik, 30 days, Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. And during that month, there are 2 Ekadasis. So what the devotees would do during each Ekadasi is they would go out the front gate, make a right-hand turn, and go around the Vrindavan Parikrama path. That would take about an hour and a half. And at the end of that hour and a half, it'd be about time for greeting the deities, and they'd go in to the temple and greet the deities. Right? So right after Mangalarti and Guru Puja, Mangalarti and Tulsi Puja, a group, good number of devotees would go together, and I swear, it happened 3 years in a row. There was a dog at the gate. It would sit there very attentively, waiting for the devotees to come out because it was Ekadasi. And he followed us. Well, he didn't follow us. He was the lead. He was our protector dog. And went all the way around, and there was a particular place at the southern end of the Parikrama path around Vrindavan town. There's an abandoned old temple building. And in that abandoned old temple building, there's a pack of dogs. So you know what a pack of dogs do early in the morning when people come by. They come out barking. So he knew this company, guard dog, knew where that place was. And he, the pack of dogs would come out, and he was ready. He had, the hair on the back of his neck standing up and showing his teeth and going grrr, to keep the pack of dogs away from us. And as soon as we passed, he would wag his tail and come and join us, and went all the way around to the front gate of a Krishna Balaram temple. And when we went inside, he paid his obeisances and went to wherever his home was. Twice a month for 3 years. Now, he probably isn't still alive because it's many years after that. But I have first-hand experience that animals in Vrindavan, some animals at least, are very regulated. So I don't disbelieve the regulation part, but it's pretty amazing that Prabhupada could speak the language of a monkey, in monkey language, monkey talk. conversation, not just like make sounds like they make, but a back and forth conversation. So if Prabhupada had the compassion and empowerment or whatever else it takes to be able to converse with a monkey, what about us? And so he knew his audience. And he knew how to touch our hearts. And because what he wanted was that we become happy. Last year I wrote a Vyasa Puja offering just on that. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Let the world become happy. And Prabhupada said that so many times. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. He just wanted the people to be happy. He gave his life so that people could be happy. And he knew what would make them happy and what wouldn't. And it's not just by being pious or other kinds of niceties that on the platform of the mind, body or mind. It's on the platform of the soul. And his effort to provide this Srimad Bhagavatam, great, it's a labor of love. So I'm encouraging those of you that wish to do this, spend some time once a week. It can be in person or it can be on, a Zoom call or whatever you all want to do. And you just read Prabhupada's books together and sequentially go through the Bhagavatam. And something will happen, guarantee. Guarantee. Some spiritual transformation or this change of heart. And I don't think there's too many steel-framed hearts over here. I think you have soft hearts. But if you can take that to heart, then some transformation, guaranteed, because he knows his audience. If you have Bhagavatam sets at your home, you can go back and look at this verse. It's Canto 2, Chapter 3, verse 24. 2, 3, 24. So let's see if there's some discussion. If you don't have a Srimad Bhagavatam set, we can take care of that. This month, yes, last month was the month of Shravan. This is the month of Bhadra. In the month of Bhadra, there's a verse in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam that says, if one gives a gift of this Srimad Bhagavatam on the full moon night of the month of Bhadra, then to another, it's a little qualifier and a golden throne, but give the gift of Srimad Bhagavatam to another in the month of Bhadra, then one is sure to go back to Godhead after this life. So if you know some people that don't have Srimad Bhagavatam, get them a set of Srimad Bhagavatam and give it as a gift. In essence, doesn't have to be literally, but in essence on behalf of the Bhadra Purnima night, comes at the end of this month. We just observed Ekadasi. We're in the waning moon, and then comes the waxing moon to the full moon. Any discussion? Any thoughts or comments? We have a little portable microphone. You just have to raise your hand in the air and something magic will happen.
Guru Maharaj, I find the translation of this verse interesting. We hear that the holy name is a touchstone, and you get transformed when you touch a touchstone or come in contact with a touchstone. And the translation is, in spite of one's chanting the holy name with concentration, the heart doesn't change. So how is it that in spite of coming in contact with...
It's in the part of the purport I didn't read. It's due to offense.
And when we use the phrase change of heart, it seems we're assuming that this is our conditioned nature rests in the heart. And
Yes.
so, because we also hear this analogy that, you know, at the heart level, or at the soul level, we're like this flame covered by smoke. So it's not that the smoke is our real nature. We are the fire. And yet here we're speaking about change of heart as if conditioned nature is really the heart.
No, it's the covering over. The change is the covering is now due to offenses. There's a covering even in contact with that which is fully spiritual. Due to offense, that which is fully spiritual is covered or not apparently visible or experienced. And when the offenses are gone, then that's the change of heart. It's the covering removed and the awakening of the fullness of our spiritual consciousness. So it's the combination of both. It's not just the one. That is, the fullness of spiritual consciousness is stifled or covered or not fully manifest. That's for all of us, devotees and non-devotees alike. Our pure love is not something we're experiencing presently, and the change of heart is to experience it. But there's an obstacle. It's not just the covering. It's not just the mind. It's the heart is in this covered, you can say, dormant state, like a seed, dormant, covered. Not only the covering. The consciousness of our present state is not matured. It's there, dormant.
I really appreciated your very terse sutra-like statement again. The heart is where the deepest convictions of life rest.
Yes.
And it's very unfortunate that even though these are our deepest convictions, because of weakness of heart,
Yes.
we allow the mind to lead us into acting out of alignment with our deepest convictions.
Yeah.
So even though the mind is not as substantial as our deepest convictions, but we allow it to take over.
Well, something is going to be functioning. And if we're not functioning at that deepest level, we're going to be functioning at some other level. But because we're not functioning at that deepest level doesn't mean it's not there. It's just the consciousness is extended out and away.
And finally, Guru Maharaj, in preparation for our upcoming Vrindavan Yatra in 2 months, I really appreciate your stories about the animals and how they're very special and regulated in Vrindavan. So thank you for that.
Well, they're not all, there are certainly unregulated animals. Yeah, be very careful. They're special entities, special beings. We don't cuddle up to them, but they're special entities. Anyone else? No? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
It was so pleasing to know about that Vrindavan dog experience, Maharaj. It was so great to know about it. This is what I say. That's my comment.
The monkey story?
No, the dog one.
The
Monkey,
dog
yeah.
story.
Monkey is great, but the dog I was able to relate very much because you are here next to us and you are telling us the story. And
It
sometimes,
was quite amazing. I thought maybe it's just a quirk, but it happened every Ekadasi 2 times during 3 consecutive Kartik months. Same dog, right at the gate, sitting, waiting for the devotees to come, and at the end paying obeisances. Every time, 6 times.
when I hear it, what I felt is like some advanced for personalities were came as a god to lead and protect. That's how I took it, Maharaj.
Well, Prabhupada has taught us that if you make an offense in Vrindavan, you may take birth as an animal. But it would be a last time, the animal birth. So that's how I took it. It was some person, some soul was a devotee, made some offense, they became a dog, but they were actually attracted to being in service to the devotees. So that was the appropriate, one appropriate service for them. Very interesting.
Yes, yes, Maharaj. And next one is like the punchline. What I got is like continuously reading the Bhagavatam, transformation will definitely happen in the
Yeah.
art level.
Yeah. Okay, let me read. Keshava Madhava Das. Haribo Keshava Madhava. Is there anything that goes beyond I am the servant of the Lord Krishna, and my purpose is to reestablish that lost individual relationship with him? Is that the ultimate prerequisite for someone to study all Vaishnava teachings without being afraid of being misdirected? Well, there's something beyond, but the something beyond is just a more mature stage of that seed. So, what is my spiritual form? What is my spiritual identity? My spiritual name? My spiritual swarup? Is that the ultimate prerequisite for someone to study all Vaishnava teachings without being afraid of being misdirected? If you study Vaishnava teachings, you don't need to be afraid of being misdirected. The particular, the operative word is Vaishnava teachings, and then so there's some teachings that are not exactly Vaishnava teachings. But if you read Vaishnava teachings, you could say through disciplic succession, you're in the safety zone. No need to worry. This one, Srila, this is from Singapore. May I kindly know if spiritual strength can sometimes cause pride? Sure. It's not that spiritual strength causes pride, something else causes pride. Why is it that in our devotional practices that humility is often emphasized, giving examples of those who have fallen after a little success in spiritual life due to pride? Well, there's consequences for pride. That's why they're given. It's not just, an intimidation tactic. It's real. Pride goes before the fall. There's this common saying. I mean, it's in the Bible. Pride goeth before the fall. The old English language. So, can spiritual strength sometimes cause pride? Not spiritual strength doesn't cause pride. Contamination causes pride. Being a little successful may cause pride, but it's not the spiritual strength. It's the residual contamination of heart that causes one to become weakened by pride. Well, that's it. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.